Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into the world of martial arts, but get ready for a twist.
Okay.
We're not focusing on the physical stuff, like the kicks and punches.
Right.
Instead, we're talking about the mental game,
Yeah.
the philosophy behind it,
I like it.
with Arnaud Veere's A Force of One.
Okay.
You're interested in that inner warrior, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
So we're going to unpack Veere's insights on warrior codes, mental discipline, and even this surprising link between food and aggression.
Interesting.
Get ready, because this book is packed.
It's a fascinating read, very insightful.
Right. Okay, so Veere kicks things off with this bold statement. Life is a battlefield. But he doesn't just leave it there. He dives deep into how we're constantly battling from the very beginning.
It's almost poetic how he connects this idea of a battlefield to the core of existence itself. He talks about how even from the moment of conception, it's a struggle, sperm competing, vying for life. Then we burst into the world only to face new battles, our own ego, societal expectations. It's like this constant push and pull.
It really makes you question the whole concept of peace, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If we're always in some kind of struggle, can true peace ever really exist?
That's precisely the point Veere challenges. He suggests that maybe peace isn't the absence of conflict, but more about those brief pauses between battles. Even when things seem calm, there's this underlying current of striving, of pushing forward. He even brings up the example of a monk meditating in the mountains seemingly at peace, right?
Yeah, you'd think so.
But even the monk is engaged in a fight against the elements, against his own desires, his own mind. It's this constant awareness that battles are simply part of the fabric of being alive.
That's deep. So how does this warrior philosophy apply in the real world?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we're all out there in a dojo, right?
And that's where Veere's insights about respect and gratitude come in.
Okay.
He argues that in our fast-paced consumerist society, these qualities are becoming tragically rare. One of his most powerful takeaways for you is the idea that this lack of respect and gratitude is a direct line to dissatisfaction.
That's a really good point. I know I'm guilty of it myself sometimes.
We all are. Think about it. How often do you pause to genuinely appreciate the effort behind your food, your phone, even your relationships? When we take these things for granted, it's easy to slip into a sense of entitlement, which, as Veere suggests, often leads to us feeling unhappy and unfulfilled.
That's so true. So how do we cultivate more of that respect and gratitude?
Interestingly, Veere uses martial arts as an example. He explains how even the simple act of bowing to an opponent is about so much more than just tradition. It's about recognizing their humanity, their dedication, their own journey in the same way you're working on yours. There's this deep respect for the lineage of knowledge passed down, for the shared pursuit of mastery.
It's like a mutual understanding of the struggle, right? No matter who wins the fight.
Precisely. And that acknowledgement of effort then translates into self-respect as well. It's not about empty praise, but about recognizing your own effort, your own growth within the system. You appreciate the journey as much as the destination.
It's interesting how something as simple as acknowledging effort can have such a ripple effect, right? It can shift our perspective, not only on the world around us, but also on ourselves.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect example of how Veere takes these seemingly abstract philosophical concepts and makes them incredibly relevant to our daily lives.
Speaking of daily life, let's talk about motivation, something I think we all struggle with from time to time. And Veere gets incredibly practical here, drawing on his own training experiences. He even shares some pretty intense anecdotes.
What I found most valuable is his clear distinction between self-motivation and being motivated by others. He argues that those external motivators, praise, rewards, recognition, they're fleeting. They might give you a quick boost, but they won't sustain you in the long run. True drive, that fire in the belly, has to come from within.
He uses a great analogy to illustrate this, right? Something about climbing stairs.
Exactly. He compares those external motivators to trying to leap up an entire flight of stairs in one go. You might make it for a step or two, but you're far more likely to fall flat on your face. True sustainable progress is about taking those small, consistent steps day after day. And this is especially relevant for you considering your focus on efficiency. He even suggests instead of planning months or years ahead, start with what you can achieve in just a week.
That's a really interesting approach. It makes those big goals seem a lot less daunting, breaking them down into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Absolutely. Small steps, consistent effort, that's where the magic happens.
Now, this next part really resonated with me. Veere's analogy of the car in the garage. It's such a powerful way to understand how our own ego can sometimes hold us back from achieving true fulfillment.
It's brilliant, isn't it, the way he describes it? The car, that's your ego, your prized possession. You want to keep it shiny, protect it, show it off. But then it gets stuck in the garage, buried under all these boxes.
Yeah.
And those boxes, those are the expectations, the ones we place on ourselves and the ones society piles on top.
So we get so busy trying to move those boxes, meet those expectations, that we lose sight of the car itself. We forget what's truly important.
Exactly. We get caught up in the shoulds and the have-tos, and we lose sight of our own values, our own desires. It's like that car becomes a symbol of our potential gathering dust because we're too focused on external validation to actually get behind the wheel.
It's like we're conditioned to expect certain things in life, the fancy job, the big house, the perfect relationship. And when those expectations aren't met, it leads to disappointment, even suffering.
And that's where the danger of Maya or illusion comes in. He argues that by clinging to these expectations, to this often false sense of reality, we prevent ourselves from seeing things as they truly are.
It's like we're so busy chasing after this perfect image that we miss out on the beauty of the present moment of the journey itself.
And the irony is by letting go of those rigid expectations, by shifting our focus from what we think we should have to what we actually do have,
Right.
we often open ourselves up to a deeper sense of fulfillment and contentment.
Okay, this next part was a bit unexpected, but so fascinating. Veere dives into vegetarianism and consumerism, but through this lens of human aggression. It's not about preaching one diet over another, but about understanding the deeper implications of our choices.
It's like he's saying we can't ignore our inherent nature. We have these primal instincts within us, even if we choose a different path.
Which is a really interesting way to look at it. It's not about denying who we are, but about making conscious choices that align with our values. So how does he tie all of this back to the idea of the warrior within?
Well, Veere argues that recognizing those instincts without shame or suppression is key to controlling them. It's about conscious choice, not just following trends or trying to fit into a box. And that self-awareness, that conscious choice, is at the heart of the warrior philosophy.
This next section really resonated with me. The importance of finding your tribe, your people. And Veere ties this beautifully into the role of a true teacher in martial arts.
He stresses that student-teacher relationship should be sacred. It's built on trust, mutual respect, and the shared journey of growth. It's about more than just learning how to kick or punch. It's about developing discipline, character, resilience qualities that extend far beyond the training hall.
But he also acknowledges that finding a good mentor, someone who truly embodies those qualities, is harder than ever. He seems to lament that this deep sense of loyalty, of belonging, and responsibility to the lineage of the art is fading.
It's true. He talks about how some students jump from gym to gym, chasing trends or quick fixes without ever really committing to the deeper practice, the deeper connection.
And he sees that as a real loss, doesn't he?
Absolutely. He argues that this sense of belonging, of being part of something larger than yourself, is where the real learning, the real transformation happens.
So how do we cultivate that sense of loyalty, that deeper connection in a world that often feels so transient and disconnected?
Well, Veere offers a few really interesting solutions. He talks about the importance of fostering a sense of community within the gym itself, of creating shared goals that go beyond individual achievement. He also stresses the importance of reminding students about the value of the knowledge they're receiving about the lineage they're now a part of.
It's about creating a culture of respect, responsibility, and shared purpose. Right? Making the gym more than just a place to work out, but a place of belonging and growth.
Exactly. It's about building a tribe, a support system that encourages you to become the best version of yourself, both on and off the mat.
And that's a really powerful message, especially in today's world.
It really is, because that's where the real magic of this warrior philosophy comes to life, in building those bonds of shared purpose and mutual growth.
Okay, I'm hooked.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
Well, Veere tackles a concept that often gets a bad rap: aggression. But he digs beneath the surface, arguing it's not just about throwing punches or yelling at someone who cut you off in traffic.
Okay, so then what is it about? I'm intrigued.
He talks about aggression as this fundamental force present in nature and all living things from the very beginning. Remember that struggle for life at conception we talked about earlier? That's aggression in action.
Wow, I never thought about it like that before.
Right. He suggests it's about survival, protecting ourselves and our resources. And he argues that we can't just suppress this instinct. It's part of who we are.
So it's less about eliminating aggression and more about understanding how to work with it.
Exactly. Veere suggests that instead of denying or suppressing our aggression, we should aim to channel it in positive ways. And he believes martial arts training can be a really powerful tool for doing just that.
How so?
He argues that training, especially in a disciplined and structured environment, helps us develop self-control. And think about it when you're sparring. You can't just lash out whenever you feel like it.
That's true. There are rules, techniques, timing. It's like a dance, but with a lot more sweat.
Precisely. And through that process, you're not becoming less aggressive, but rather more aware of your aggression. You learn to channel it into focused action.
It's like taking that raw energy and shaping it into something productive, something that moves you closer to your goals.
Exactly.
Okay, so we talked about aggression now. What about peace? Does Veere see them as total opposites?
That's where it gets really interesting. He doesn't view peace as simply the absence of conflict. Instead, he describes it as the state of inner balance of harmony within yourself.
So it's less about the world being peaceful and more about finding that peace within, even when everything around you feels chaotic.
You got it. He argues that true peace, lasting peace, comes from accepting that conflict is a reality of life. It's learning to navigate those inevitable clashes with grace and wisdom without letting them completely throw you off balance.
That makes sense. It's like that saying, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
That's a great way to put it. And Veere takes it a step further, encouraging each of us to develop our own personal warrior code.
Our own warrior code. What does that look like?
Think of it as your own set of values principles that guide your actions. It's about getting clear on what truly matters to you, what you stand for, and then using that as your compass, especially when faced with tough decisions.
It's like that internal guidance system that keeps you true to yourself no matter what challenges you encounter.
Precisely. And it provides you with a framework for making choices that align with those values, even when the easy path might lead you astray.
I love that.
Okay.
So we're developing our personal warrior code, learning to channel our aggression, finding our inner peace. What else does Veere have in store for us?
Well, he dives into something that's absolutely essential for any warrior on or off the mat discipline. But again, he digs deeper than the surface level.
What do you mean?
He doesn't see discipline as just about physical training pushing your body to its limits. While that's definitely part of it, he argues that true discipline is about much more than that.
So it's less about how many push-ups you can do and more about the choices you make every single day.
Exactly. He talks about discipline as a way of life. It's about having the integrity to make choices that support your goals even when you don't feel like it, even when it would be easier to just hit that snooze button or go for the instant gratification.
He's all about building those consistent habits, isn't he? Taking those small steps day after day.
Absolutely. And he reminds us that we don't have to overhaul our lives overnight. He uses this great analogy of training for a marathon. You don't just wake up one day and decide to run 26 miles. You start small, build up your endurance over time.
One step at a time, right?
Precisely. It's about those small, consistent actions done over and over again. He even suggests that instead of thinking about what you can accomplish in months or years, start by focusing on what you can achieve in just 1 week.
That makes those big goals seem much less daunting when you break them down like that.
Exactly. And just as importantly, he emphasizes finding the joy in the process. Discipline shouldn't be about punishment. It's about celebrating the small wins, learning from the setbacks, and remembering that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're cultivating discipline, but we're also supposed to find the joy in the process, celebrate the small wins. What about when things get tough? How does Veere suggest we handle those inevitable setbacks and challenges? What role does fear play in all of this?
That's a great question. And you'll love his take on fear. He doesn't see it as something to be avoided at all costs. Instead, he views it as another natural human emotion, one that can actually be incredibly useful.
Useful. How? So I never thought about fear that way before.
He talks about fear as this internal signal, a message that something is important, that you need to pay attention. It might be uncomfortable, but it's also an opportunity for growth.
Okay, so it's less about being fearless and more about learning to be courageous, even when we are afraid.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's about acknowledging that fear, understanding where it's coming from, and then making a conscious choice about how you want to respond.
So how does this tie back to martial arts?
Think about stepping onto the mat for the first time or facing an opponent who intimidates you. There's that initial surge of fear, right? But you don't let it paralyze you. You step into the ring anyway.
It's about taking action even in the face of fear.
Exactly. And Veere argues that every time you do that, every time you confront that fear and choose to move forward anyway, you weaken its hold on you. You develop courage.
That's a powerful message. So what about when we inevitably encounter setbacks?
Well, that's where Veere talks about building resilience.
And he talks about this in the context of injuries, right? Which, as anyone who's ever pushed their physical limits knows, are almost inevitable.
Precisely. And while he's specifically addressing physical injuries, the principles apply to any challenge we face in life. He views resilience as the ability to bounce back from setbacks, those moments when you get knocked down.
It's about getting back up, dusting yourself off, and figuring out what you learned from the experience.
Exactly. He stresses that resilience is like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes. Every challenge, every setback is an opportunity to flex those resilience muscles.
It's choosing to see those challenges as opportunities for growth, not as insurmountable obstacles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a big part of that, Veere argues, is cultivating a positive mindset.
So it's not just about positive thinking, it's about truly believing in your ability to overcome challenges.
Right. It's about choosing to focus on what you can control on your own efforts and actions, rather than dwelling on the things you can't.
It's about choosing to see the opportunity in the obstacle, the lesson in the setback.
Absolutely. He suggests that our thoughts have a powerful impact on our reality. If we constantly focus on negativity and defeat, that's what we're more likely to create. But if we can shift our perspective even slightly, if we can start to look for the possibilities even in the midst of difficulty, we open ourselves up to a whole new way of being.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together, the discipline, the resilience, the positive mindset. It's about showing up for yourself, even when it's hard. But Veere doesn't just expect us to be on all the time, does he? What about rest?
That's where he gets really practical and honestly really compassionate. He emphasizes the importance of rest and recovery. And again, it's not just about physical rest, although that's definitely part of it.
He takes a more holistic approach, right? Looking at the whole picture, mind, body, and spirit.
Exactly. He talks about how pushing ourselves too hard without giving ourselves adequate time to rest and recharge can actually be detrimental in the long run. It can lead to burnout, injury, and even illness.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of yourself first if you want to be able to show up fully for the people and things you care about.
Precisely. He encourages us to listen to our bodies, to learn to recognize the signs of fatigue and stress, and to prioritize things like sleep, relaxation, and downtime.
It's about finding those activities that help you unwind, de-stress, and recharge your batteries. Whether it's spending time in nature, listening to music, meditation, spending time with loved ones, whatever works for you.
Exactly. And the key is to make those activities a priority. They're not luxuries to be squeezed in if you have time. They're essential for your overall well-being.
Okay, so we're taking care of ourselves, building our resilience, finding our inner peace. What about competition? That feels like a big part of the warrior ethos, especially in the context of martial arts. How does Veere approach that?
That's a really interesting one. He actually sees competition as a valuable tool for growth, but he's also keenly aware of its potential downsides.
So it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
In a way, yes. He talks about how competition can push us to our limits, help us develop new skills, and build confidence. There's nothing quite like stepping out of your comfort zone and testing yourself against another skilled individual.
It's like a real-world application of all that training and discipline.
Exactly. But here's the catch. Veere cautions against becoming overly attached to winning or losing.
It's about remembering that the real value lies in the journey, not just the destination.
You got it. It's about challenging yourself, constantly striving to improve, but not at the expense of your own values or your overall well-being. It's about embracing the learning process, regardless of the outcome.
That's such a powerful message, especially in today's culture, where we're often so focused on results and achievements.
I agree. And Veere stresses the importance of competing with honor and respect.
So it's not just about winning, but about how you conduct yourself both on and off the mat.
Precisely. It's about treating every competition as an opportunity for growth and learning for yourself and your opponent. It's about recognizing the shared humanity in that space, the mutual respect that underpins the entire endeavor.
That's a really beautiful way to frame it. It sounds like a lot of what Veere talks about involves shifting our perspective, looking at things through a different lens.
You're absolutely right. And that's especially relevant when he talks about the role of ego in martial arts.
I imagine that's a tricky one.
It can be. He acknowledges that ego can be a powerful motivator driving us to achieve incredible things. But, and this is a big but, he cautions against letting our ego take the reins completely.
So it's about finding that balance, acknowledging that ego has its place, but also making sure it doesn't become our master.
Exactly. He talks about how unchecked ego can lead to arrogance, jealousy, even aggression, all those things that ultimately hold us back from reaching our full potential.
It's like anything else in life. Too much of a good thing can become a bad thing.
You got it. And that's why Veere stresses the importance of cultivating humanity.
So it's not about putting yourself down or denying your strengths, but about having the self-awareness to recognize that you're still on a journey, still learning and growing.
Precisely. It's about approaching every experience, every interaction with the beginner's mind. It's about recognizing that there's always something new to learn, a different way to look at things.
It's about letting go of the need to be right all the time, and instead being open to the wisdom of others.
Exactly. And that openness, that willingness to learn and grow is where true strength lies.
Okay, I'm really seeing the connection here between the physical practice of martial arts and the deeper philosophical underpinnings. It's about so much more than just fighting. It's about developing character, cultivating resilience, and becoming the best version of yourself.
That's a great observation. And Veere really drives that point home when he talks about the importance of compassion.
Now that's an interesting one. It doesn't seem like the first word that comes to mind when you think about warriors.
You'd be surprised. But Veere challenges that assumption. He doesn't see compassion as a weakness. In fact, he argues that it's essential for any warrior.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. How does he explain that?
He believes that true compassion stems from strength. It's about having the courage to see the humanity in everyone, even those we might consider our opponents. It's about recognizing that everyone is fighting their own battles, carrying their own burdens.
It's about leading with empathy and understanding, even when it's difficult.
Precisely. And Veere argues that this capacity for compassion is what allows us to build deeper connections, to de-escalate conflict, and ultimately to make the world a kinder and more just place.
That's a really powerful message. Okay, so we're cultivating compassion. We're checking our egos at the door.
Yeah.
What else does Veere suggest we focus on as we walk this warrior path?
Well, he delves into a topic that's often misunderstood, especially in the context of martial arts self-defense.
I can see how that one could get tricky. It's easy to get caught up in the physicality of it all.
Exactly. But Veere encourages a more holistic view. He doesn't see self-defense as just about mastering physical techniques, although that's certainly part of it. He emphasizes that true self-defense is about cultivating a sense of awareness, both of yourself and your surroundings.
So it's less about learning how to fight and more about learning how to avoid dangerous situations altogether.
You got it. He talks about the importance of being present in your environment, paying attention to your surroundings, and trusting your intuition.
It's about learning to recognize those subtle cues, those gut feelings that something might be off even if you can't quite put your finger on it.
Precisely. He believes that our bodies often pick up on danger signals long before our conscious minds do.
So it's about learning to trust those instincts, to listen to that inner voice that's telling you to be cautious even if you don't see an immediate threat.
Exactly.
That makes so much sense. It's about being proactive, about taking steps to minimize risk rather than just reacting to a threat after it's already emerged.
Precisely. And this approach to self-defense extends beyond just our physical surroundings. Veere emphasizes the importance of setting clear boundaries in our relationships and interactions as well.
So it's about being assertive, about communicating our needs clearly, and about saying no when we need to without feeling guilty or obligated to please others.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that setting boundaries is not about being selfish or mean. It's about respecting ourselves and our own limits. It's about understanding that we can't show up fully for others if we're constantly overextending ourselves or allowing ourselves to be treated in ways that don't feel good.
I love that. It's about recognizing that self-care is not selfish. It's essential. Okay, so we're cultivating awareness, setting healthy boundaries, but what about those times when we do find ourselves in difficult situations?
Veere emphasizes the importance of de-escalation.
It's about finding ways to diffuse a tense situation to prevent things from escalating into violence, if at all possible.
Exactly. He believes that violence should always be a last resort, and that there are often alternative solutions if we can remain calm and think clearly.
It's about remembering that even in the midst of a challenging situation, we still have choices. This whole conversation has been so eye-opening. I'm starting to see the warrior philosophy less about physical confrontation and more about this journey of self-discovery and personal growth.
And that brings us to another topic that Veere doesn't shy away from: spirituality.
Okay, so we're talking about spirituality in the context of martial arts.
Exactly. He sees spirituality as an essential part of the practice, as a way to connect with something larger than yourself, to cultivate that sense of inner peace and strength that we've been talking about.
So it's not about organized religion or anything like that?
Not necessarily. He presents it more as a way of moving through the world. He talks about how martial arts can be a powerful path to self-discovery, a way to explore your potential and to tap into that inner warrior we all possess.
It's about connecting with your own inner strength, your own inner wisdom.
You got it. And he suggests that true strength, lasting strength, comes from within. It's about cultivating self-awareness, discipline, and a deep connection to your values. He even goes so far as to say that finding a good teacher, a mentor who embodies these qualities, can be instrumental on this journey.
It's like finding that guide, that source of support and wisdom to help you navigate the inevitable challenges and to illuminate the path ahead.
Exactly.
So much of what we've been talking about revolves around respect, respecting ourselves, our boundaries, our opponents. How does Veere approach this idea of respect within the context of martial arts?
He sees it as fundamental. He argues that true respect is about so much more than just bowing to your opponent or following the rules of the dojo.
It's about a way of life, a deep respect for yourself and for all beings.
Precisely. It's about acknowledging the inherent worth and dignity of everyone, regardless of their rank, status, or accomplishments. And it's about recognizing that we're all on our own unique journeys.
And that's something we could all use a little more of these days, don't you think?
Absolutely. He stresses that true respect is earned, not demanded. It's about showing up consistently with integrity and compassion. It's about treating everyone with kindness and understanding, even when they make it difficult.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. It's about embodying those qualities of respect in everything we do, both on and off the mat.
Exactly.
This next part really surprised me. Veere talks about the importance of vulnerability.
I know, right? It seems counterintuitive, especially in the context of being a warrior.
Right. But his explanation makes so much sense. He suggests that vulnerability is not about weakness. It's about having the strength and the courage to show up authentically as your true self.
Exactly. It's about letting go of the need to be perfect, to have all the answers, to be strong all the time.
It's about being real with yourself and others, even when it's scary.
Precisely. And he argues that vulnerability is actually essential for building trust and connection. It allows us to let people in to create truly authentic relationships.
It's about allowing ourselves to be seen, imperfections and all.
Exactly. And through that process, through that willingness to be vulnerable, we open ourselves up to greater growth, learning, and resilience.
Okay, so we're embracing vulnerability, we're leading with compassion, we're finding our inner peace. What other seemingly negative emotions does Veere encourage us to re-examine?
He has a really interesting take on anger.
Anger, isn't that something we're usually told to suppress or avoid?
That's often the message we receive. But Veere challenges that. He acknowledges that anger can be destructive if it's not managed in a healthy way. However, he also believes that anger can be a powerful source of energy and strength.
So it's less about pretending that we never get angry and more about learning how to work with that anger in a constructive way.
You got it. He emphasizes the importance of understanding our anger. What triggers it? What's it trying to tell us? What are the deeper roots?
It's about taking the time to really listen to that anger and then figuring out how to channel it effectively.
Precisely. And he stresses that simply suppressing anger can actually be more harmful in the long run. It can fester and manifest in unhealthy ways, resentment, bitterness, even physical ailments.
So it's about finding healthy ways to express that anger through exercise, through creative expression, through having those difficult conversations, whatever works for you.
Exactly.
Right.
But he also cautions against letting anger cloud our judgment. It's about finding that balance between acknowledging and expressing our anger in a healthy way, while also making sure it doesn't control us or lead us to make decisions we'll regret later.
It's about harnessing the energy of anger and using it as fuel for positive action instead of letting it burn us up from the inside out.
Precisely.
Okay. I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah.
Veere seems to emphasize this idea of balance over and over again.
You're absolutely right. And it makes sense when you think about it. The entire philosophy he's outlining is about finding that equilibrium, that sweet spot where we can access our full potential without getting derailed by our own limiting beliefs or negative thought patterns.
So it's not about striving for some unattainable ideal of perfection, but about finding what works best for us as individuals.
Exactly.
So where does this idea of balance show up next?
Veere talks about the importance of patience.
Patience. Now, that's not something you hear very often these days. We live in a world of instant gratification. We want everything now.
It's true. But he suggests that cultivating patience is essential if we want to achieve lasting fulfillment. And it's not about being passive or giving up.
It's about having the discipline and the faith to stay the course, even when progress is slow or things don't go as planned.
You got it. He reminds us that meaningful change takes time. It's about trusting the process, putting in the work, and remembering that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
He's all about finding those small moments of joy along the way, right?
Exactly. It's about celebrating the small victories, acknowledging how far we've come, and savoring each step of the journey.
It's about finding the beauty in the present moment instead of constantly chasing after some future state of happiness or fulfillment.
Precisely. He suggests that when we're overly focused on the end goal, we often miss out on the magic of the present moment, the small moments of joy and gratitude that make life worth living.
This has been such a rich conversation, and I'm really starting to see how all these pieces fit together. We've covered so much ground: discipline, resilience, compassion, respect, patience. What else does Veere suggest we cultivate so we walk this path of the warrior?
Well, he emphasizes the importance of humility.
Humility. Now, that seems counterintuitive. We often think about warriors as being strong and confident, not necessarily humble.
I know, right? But Veere challenges that assumption. He doesn't see humility as a weakness, but as an essential strength.
So it's not about putting yourself down or shrinking back. It's about recognizing that you still have more to learn.
Exactly. It's about approaching life and all its challenges with a beginner's mind, open to new perspectives, willing to admit when you're wrong, and always eager to learn and grow.
It's about letting go of the need to be right all the time, isn't it?
Precisely. It's about recognizing that we can learn something from everyone we meet, every experience we have. It's about approaching life with curiosity and a sense of wonder.
I love that. So we're being humble, but also courageous in the face of fear. What about those moments when we feel overwhelmed by self-doubt?
That's another area where Veere offers a really interesting perspective. He doesn't believe that self-doubt is inherently negative. In fact, he suggests that it can actually be a powerful tool for growth.
Okay, now you're really going to have to explain this one. How can self-doubt be helpful?
He argues that self-doubt often stems from a desire to improve, to be better. It pushes us to question our assumptions, to identify areas where we can grow, and to strive for excellence.
So it's less about listening to that inner critic who tells us we're not good enough, and more about channeling that self-doubt into a force for positive change.
Exactly. He stresses the importance of not letting self-doubt paralyze us. It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress, constantly learning and growing.
It's about embracing those imperfections, learning from our mistakes, and giving ourselves permission to be human.
Precisely. And I think that's a really important message, especially in today's world where we're often bombarded with messages about being perfect and achieving success at all costs.
It's refreshing to hear someone say, it's okay to not have it all figured out.
It is.
So what other seemingly negative emotions does Veere suggest we might be able to learn from?
He has some really interesting things to say about frustration.
Frustration. That's definitely one that I could stand to manage a little better.
I think we all could. But Veere suggests that instead of viewing frustration as a negative emotion to be avoided at all costs, we might consider looking at it as an opportunity for growth.
Okay, I'm listening.
He argues that frustration often arises when there's a discrepancy between our current reality and our desired outcome. We're not where we want to be, and that gap between where we are and where we want to be can feel incredibly frustrating.
It can feel like a brick wall, like you're making zero progress.
Exactly. But Veere suggests that instead of allowing ourselves to become consumed by that frustration, we can choose to use it as fuel for positive action.
So it's about taking that energy and channeling it into finding a solution, into bridging the gap between where we are and where we want to be.
You got it.
Yep.
He believes that frustration, when harnessed effectively, can be a powerful motivator. It can push us to be more creative, more resourceful, and more determined to find a way forward.
It's about recognizing that frustration is often a sign that we care deeply about something. It's a signal that we need to adjust our approach, find new solutions, and tap into our resilience.
Precisely. He reminds us that frustration is a natural part of the growth process. It means we're stretching ourselves, pushing beyond our comfort zones, and striving for something more.
So we're learning from our frustration, embracing vulnerability, cultivating humility. What other essential qualities does Veere encourage us to develop?
He talks about the importance of self-awareness.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about knowing yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your triggers, all of it.
Exactly. He believes that self-awareness is the foundation for everything else. It's about understanding your motivations, your values, your patterns of behavior.
It's about being honest with yourself about who you are, where you are in your journey, and what you want to create.
Precisely. He argues that without self-awareness, it's incredibly difficult to make meaningful progress in any area of life.
So it's like that saying, know thyself. It's about becoming a student of yourself, paying attention to your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors without judgment.
You got it. He also
Yeah.
talks about the importance of mindfulness.
So it's about paying attention to the present moment, to what's happening right here, right now.
Exactly. It's about noticing our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment, without getting swept away by them. It's about learning to observe those internal experiences with a sense of curiosity and compassion.
It sounds like mindfulness is about creating space between those thoughts and feelings and our reactions to them.
Precisely. And he suggests that practicing mindfulness can have a profound impact on our lives. It can help us reduce stress, improve our focus, regulate our emotions more effectively, and cultivate greater self-awareness.
It sounds like a superpower we can all develop with a little practice.
Exactly. And here's the best part. It doesn't require any special equipment or expensive retreats. You can practice mindfulness anytime, anywhere, simply by bringing your attention to your breath, to your senses, to the present moment.
I loved it. Okay, so we're cultivating self-awareness, practicing mindfulness. What else does Veere suggest we focus on?
He talks about the importance of balance.
Balance. Okay, that seems like a big one. What does he mean by that?
He sees balance as this holistic concept that encompasses all aspects of our lives: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual.
So it's not just about balancing our work life and our personal life. It's about finding that equilibrium within ourselves.
Precisely. It's about ensuring that we're not neglecting any one area of our lives at the expense of another.
So it's about making sure we're making time for exercise, for healthy eating, for sleep, but also for our relationships, our passions, our spiritual practices, all the things that light us up and make us feel whole.
You've got it. And Veere stresses that finding balance is an ongoing process. It's not something we achieve once and then check off our to-do list.
It's about constantly checking in with ourselves, assessing where we're at, and making adjustments as needed.
Exactly. It's about being flexible and adaptable, recognizing that our needs will change over time, and that's okay.
Okay, so we're finding our balance, embracing our imperfections, cultivating self-awareness. What other seemingly weak qualities does Veere suggest we might want to embrace?
He encourages us to practice self-compassion.
Self-compassion, I have to admit, that's not one I would have expected. Isn't that kind of the opposite of what a warrior represents?
It might seem counterintuitive, but Veere argues that self-compassion is not about being weak or self-indulgent. It's about treating yourself with the same kindness, understanding, and forgiveness that you would offer to a good friend or loved one.
So instead of beating ourselves up when we make a mistake or fall short of our own expectations, we should aim to be more supportive and encouraging of ourselves.
Exactly. He reminds us that we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have those moments of self-doubt or frustration. That's just part of the human experience.
It's about recognizing that those imperfections are what make us unique, what make us interesting.
Precisely. And Veere argues that when we can learn to approach ourselves with greater compassion and acceptance, we actually create more space for growth and transformation.
That makes sense. When we're constantly beating ourselves up, it's hard to find the motivation or the energy to move forward. But when we can be kind to ourselves, even when we mess up, it allows us to learn from those mistakes and keep growing.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that setbacks and failures are not the end of the world. They're simply opportunities for learning and growth.
It's about treating ourselves with the same gentleness and encouragement that we would offer to a friend who was going through a tough time.
Precisely. He suggests that practicing self-compassion can be incredibly powerful, especially when we're facing challenges or setbacks.
Okay, so we're practicing self-compassion, but also being honest with ourselves about our areas for growth. What other qualities does Veere highlight as being important on this warrior path?
Gratitude is another big one.
Gratitude? Okay, that one makes sense. It's about focusing on what we have to be thankful for, even when things are tough.
Exactly. But he takes it a step further. He argues that gratitude is not just about feeling thankful for the good things in our lives. It's about actively cultivating a sense of appreciation for everything, even the challenges.
Okay, now that's a powerful reframe. How can we be grateful for challenges?
Veere suggests that challenges are what help us grow, what push us to become stronger and more resilient. They're opportunities for learning and expansion, even if they're uncomfortable in the moment.
So instead of resisting those tough times, we can choose to see them as opportunities for growth, for becoming more of who we're meant to be.
You got it. He reminds us that it's often in those moments when we're stretched beyond our comfort zones that we discover hidden strengths and develop greater resilience.
So the challenges aren't something to be feared or avoided. They're an essential part of the journey.
Precisely. And when we can approach those challenges with a sense of gratitude, it shifts our entire perspective. It allows us to find meaning and purpose even in the midst of difficulty.
That's a really powerful practice.
Yeah.
It's about finding the good even when things are tough.
Exactly. And he also talks about the importance of expressing gratitude.
So it's not enough to just feel grateful. We need to actually show our gratitude to others.
Exactly. He talks about how expressing gratitude, whether it's through words, actions, or simply taking the time to truly appreciate someone, can have a ripple effect, creating more positivity and a joy in the world.
It's like that saying, gratitude is the best attitude.
I love that. And he suggests finding ways to give back to your community, to pay it forward, to share your own unique gifts and talents with the world.
It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our actions, no matter how small, have the power to make a difference.
Precisely. Okay, so we're cultivating gratitude, we're finding balance, we're practicing self-compassion. What else is on Veere's list of essential qualities for a warrior?
He talks about the importance of forgiveness.
Forgiveness. That's a big one. And it's often easier said than done right.
It can be incredibly challenging, especially when we've been hurt or wronged by someone.
Absolutely. And Veere acknowledges that. But he also stresses that forgiveness is not about condoning bad behavior or pretending that what happened didn't matter.
So it's not about letting the other person off the hook or minimizing their action?
Exactly. He describes forgiveness as a gift we give to ourselves. It's about choosing to release the anger, resentment, and bitterness that keep us trapped in the past.
It's about recognizing that holding on to those negative emotions only hurts us in the long run.
Precisely. He suggests that forgiveness is about freeing ourselves from the burden of the past so we can move forward with our lives.
It's about creating space for healing and growth, both for ourselves and for our relationships.
Exactly. And that's true whether we're talking about forgiving someone else or forgiving ourselves for our own past mistakes.
It's about recognizing that we're all human. We all make mistakes. And that holding on to guilt and shame only prevents us from stepping into our full potential.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're practicing forgiveness, cultivating gratitude, and embracing vulnerability. What other seemingly negative emotions does Veere encourage us to re-examine?
He talks about the power of focus.
Focus. That's a big one in today's world, isn't it? With so many distractions vying for our attention, it can be a real struggle to stay focused on what truly matters.
It's like we're constantly bombarded with information, notifications, and demands on our time.
Exactly. And Veere argues that developing our ability to focus is more important now than ever before. He doesn't see focus as just about concentrating on a task, but as a way of being fully present, fully engaged in whatever we're doing.
So it's about being intentional with our energy and our attention.
Precisely. It's about choosing to focus on what's important, what moves us closer to our goals, and what brings us joy. And it's about learning to gently redirect our attention when we notice ourselves getting sidetracked or distracted.
It's about training our minds to stay present, to be fully immersed in the moment, whether we're working on a challenging project, engaging in a meaningful conversation, or simply enjoying a quiet moment in nature.
Exactly. And he talks about the importance of finding our flow state.
Flow state. What's that?
It's that state of effortless concentration where we're so absorbed in what we're doing that time seems to fly by. You know, you're totally in the zone.
Oh, I've definitely experienced that before. It's like everything else just melts away and you're completely present, completely immersed in the experience.
Exactly. And Veere suggests that finding our flow state, whether it's through our work, our creative pursuits, or even our relationships, is essential for living a fulfilling life.
So how do we access this flow state more often?
He suggests that it's about finding those activities that truly light us up, that ignite our passion and creativity. It's about eliminating distractions, setting clear intentions, and then allowing ourselves to become fully absorbed in the process.
It's about finding that sweet spot where challenge and skill intersect, where we're fully engaged but not overwhelmed.
Exactly. Okay, so we're cultivating focus, we're practicing forgiveness, and we're remembering to express our gratitude. What else does Veere encourage us to explore?
He talks about the importance of mentorship, both finding a good mentor and being a good mentee.
He really stresses the importance of finding those individuals who can guide us, support us, and challenge us to become the best versions of ourselves.
He talks about how a good mentor is like a trusted advisor, someone who has walked the path before us and can offer valuable insights and wisdom.
Exactly. But he also emphasizes that mentorship is not a one-way street. It's about being a willing and active participant in the process. It's about being open to feedback, even when it's difficult to hear, and about taking action on the guidance we receive.
It's about showing up fully, both for ourselves and for our mentors, and recognizing that the most powerful mentorship relationships are those built on mutual respect, trust, and a shared commitment to growth.
Exactly. Okay, so we're recognizing the importance of mentorship, we're practicing forgiveness, and we're learning to embrace our anger. What else does Veere encourage us to explore?
He talks about the importance of community.
Yes. He believes that surrounding ourselves with a supportive community is essential for growth resilience and overall well-being.
He talks about how our community provides us with a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, and a network of support that we can lean on when times get tough.
Exactly. And he also emphasizes the importance of contributing to our communities. It's not enough to just receive support. We also need to find ways to give back, to share our own unique gifts and talents, and to support others on their journeys.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together, and that by helping each other, by lifting each other up, we create a stronger and more vibrant community for everyone.
Precisely.
This has been such an incredibly insightful deep dive. So much to think about, so much to unpack, and so many practical tools and strategies that we can start implementing in our own lives right away.
I agree. And I think that's one of the things that makes Veere's work so compelling. He doesn't just present us with a bunch of abstract philosophical concepts. He provides us with practical tools and strategies that we can actually use to create positive change in our own lives and in the world around us.
He challenges us to take action, to step into our power, and to become the best versions of ourselves.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into A Force of One, what's the one thing you hope our listeners will take away from this conversation?
I think the most important takeaway is that this warrior philosophy is not about physical strength or fighting prowess. It's about cultivating inner strength, resilience, compassion, and wisdom. It's about showing up with integrity, living in alignment with our values, and making a positive impact on the world.
It's about finding that warrior within that spark of courage and determination that resides in each of us.
Absolutely. And it's about recognizing that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
It's about embracing the challenges, celebrating the victories, and never giving up on ourselves or our dreams.
Beautifully said.
And to you, listener, keep exploring these ancient philosophies. They really do hold surprising relevance in our modern world. And until next time, keep diving deep.